is you see the beginnings of the foundation walls going up in our big hole that's there. So what they have been working on for the last several weeks is pouring footings along the exterior of the hole, starting the foundation walls, and they're starting the footings down the middle, so they'll ultimately pour the mat footing that will go in across the entire distance of that foundation. But we're really excited to see this framing going up. They're doing about 160 linear feet per week of foundation wall, and anticipate that in the beginning of October roughly, we'll start loading some steel down into the hole, and you'll start seeing some steel in the air as early as late fall this year. So we're really excited. And what you see there, just for your reference, I believe that's the beginnings of the band room. So you wouldn't know it now, but at some point it will look more like a band room. In George Mason this year, we have 4 classrooms that are sample furniture classrooms that I am very excited to report to you tonight that we've been able to get these 4 classrooms set up with 4 different companies. And we're sort of mixing and matching some furniture in those classrooms. And students are in there, they're coming in, they're checking out the furniture, they're seeing how it moves, they're seeing how useful it is, how they can regroup and regroup for different purposes, how tables move and the like. And in the end, the students that have used these pieces of furniture and the teachers that have come in and have also sort of experienced them through kind of a petting zoo, if you will, experience, will be taking a survey and providing us some feedback so that when we do go to purchase furniture during our FF&E phase, which is an ongoing phase, and Lisa High has been incredibly supportive working through that, we will have a good sense of what seems to work best in the classrooms. So what you see here in the top left are sort of standalone desks. They're on casters, and again, it's for purposes of being able to group and regroup quickly for different purposes, because what we do know about instruction is it's not static and it should be moving, and kids should be flexible in the way that they sit. In the bottom, and by the way, those castered, any of these chairs that are on casters might sort of, what's the professional term, freak you out at first, because, and it does our teachers as well, because they're worried about kids kind of rolling all over the place. That excitement lasts about 10 minutes, and then the students stop and they settle in and start working. Would you agree with that, Niharika? Have you had a chance to be on them? Yeah. What's that? In Mr. Snyder's room. So yeah, so there's an immediate sort of excitement about them, and then it sort of wears off and it's just another desk. But in the bottom left, there are some other chairs, and those task chairs are just kind of interesting to me, so I'll call them to your attention. Those chairs, actually, you can sit in multiple ways. You can sit forward as a regular chair. You can sit backwards, and the back of that chair actually serves as a flat desktop that you can use for writing or for computing. And then you can also actually stand and sit on the top, the back of that chair, and it doesn't fall. The way that it's been built is it won't tip, so you can actually sit on the back. It's just kind of fun and interesting. And then on the right, you'll see a little bit more of a traditional look, but chairs and tables. The tables are in casters, and so are the chairs. And those are high-top variable type spaces as well. What you don't see in here are your parents' school desks, right? And really what we are looking at for our high school of the future is something that will be much more flexible and useful for the type of instruction that we intend to deliver when the new building opens. So with that, let me transition just for a minute to some opening school data, just to kind of share with you. And let me kind of begin by orienting you to this table very quickly. Down the left-hand axis are our schools, and across the top axis are the school year 2017-18, then the projections for 18-19, the actuals for 18-19, the projections for 19-20, and then our day one count. Actually, these were pulled yesterday, so they're a little bit better than day one. But I share that with you very cautiously, because our attendance is going to fluctuate over the next few days as students are still coming in and the like. But I'll start with down in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see our total number of students this year as of yesterday is 2,677 students. That is up 8 students from our projection. So if you go back one column, you'll note that we were projected at 2669 and we came in at 2677. And if you go back one more column, school year 18-19 last year, we were 2654. So we're actually 23 over what we were last year. We are sort of proud of the projection, the accuracy of the projection, and I just want to take a step back, not because of anything that we really have done, except for looked at some trend data. So through some analysis that Kristen Michael and her team did last year, you might recall that in the spring when we were going through the budget process, we downgraded the projection that we received from Weldon Cooper by 30, particularly, and it was all focused in kindergarten. So if we had stayed and maintained with that Weldon Cooper projection and not looked at some historical data, and by the way, that Weldon Cooper data is always very good, we just were able to refine it a little bit further based on some historical data that we had. But had we gone with that projection, we'd be at we would be under projection by 22 students. So the fact that we're over 8 feels a little bit better to us, and it feels like we budgeted more appropriately for the year based on the projections that we actually got. What you'll also see here is that year over year, from last year to this year, where we are with respect to each school. So I would just call your attention to that middle column, the SY 18-19 school year. So you'll see Jesse Thackeray last year was 66, this year's 67. Mount Daniel's 346 this year, remember we moved second grade there, is at 529. Thomas Jefferson was 783, remember second grade went away, now we're at 556. 608 last year at Henderson, we had that large 6th grade group move up, our 5th grade group move up, and we're at 665. And at George Mason, we grew by 7. So we were 553 last year, and this year we're at 860. So I think that those are some interesting notes for you as we head into thinking about what it looks like year over year, and as we continue to try to refine our projections with respect to the budget process. Here you'll see, again, enrollment class by class. You'll see kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Kindergarten is worthy of mentioning because we did, as you recall, in the budget process last year, cut 1 kindergarten teacher and 1 para based on our projected enrollment growth, and here's where it diverged a little bit. Although we cut a teacher and anticipated less kindergarten students than we thought we were going to get, we actually got more kindergarten students than we thought we were going to get. We did get 180. And so you'll recall last year at the end of the budget cycle, we were able to find, we received a little extra money from the City Council through the budget process, and we asked you to put it into a staffing reserve. And we were able to, out of that staffing reserve, restore that kindergarten teacher and that para to be able to cover this enrollment bump at kindergarten. So we appreciate the opportunity to do that. So working down, you'll see pre-K through 5, our overall enrollment comparative to last year is actually down 43. And part of that, again, is just a reminder that 5th grade group moved on. And so that accounts for almost all of that change or that delta in enrollment. When we look at the enrollment at Henderson, you'll see 6th grade. Probably the best way to look at this, and let me back up just for a second. I'm going to take you back to this chart, because one of the other ways you can look at this chart that may be useful to you is to look at it on the diagonal. And what I mean is, if you look at kindergarten, last year enrollment is 164, and then you look down at 1st grade this year, we're at 173. So that would be the group that would move up. So 164 to 173 in 1st grade. So we actually, in that cohort group, grew by 9 students. That's not unusual. We'll see that occasionally from kindergarten to 1st grade because students will come back who were privately placed for kindergarten, for example. And then in 1st grade last year, we had 182. And this year in 2nd grade, we have 176. Which means that our cohort of 2nd graders, or 1st graders from last year who are 2nd graders this year actually declined a little bit. So just another way to look at these data that may be of interest to you. So here is the Henderson information and the George Mason information. At Henderson, again, this year the 6th grade is 237. Last year it was 196. 7th grade held steady at 211. 8th grade bumped up a little bit by 18. Ninth grade, we saw 224 flat. At 10th grade, we grew by 22. 11th grade grew by 3, and 12th grade went down by 12. So the overall differential from last year to this year in secondary enrollment, last year we were at 1453, and this year we're at 1525. So we've seen our numbers go up. Again, a big portion of that is that 6th grade group that bumped up. The other thing we didn't experience this year that I'd like to just call attention to is historically we have seen a dip at 6th grade. And so when students transition to 6th grade, for some reason for the last few years, students were exiting the system or moving or whatever. But this year we did not experience that dip like we traditionally have. So there could be some analysis to be done around that internally. So those are our numbers. That's where we stand today. We're really excited to have the year off and running. We've got great things happening in our classrooms. We're fully staffed. We were fully staffed the first day of school. We do have some long-term subs in some positions for some of our staff that are out for varieties of leave, but they have been well-trained and are rocking and rolling. So we are very excited to have the year underway. So, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Great, thank you very much. And I'll just echo what you said. The first day of school went so smoothly. When we were walking around to schools, it felt like the middle of the school year, not the first day. So kudos to everyone involved. Next up on the agenda is public comments and requests. In accordance with School Board Bylaw 2.30, the time for each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Additional written statements may be submitted to the clerk for dissemination to board members and for the record. We have one comment. Paul Boson.
No books tonight. Just wanted to make a brief public comment on behalf of Welcoming Falls Church. So just a quick update, a couple of things. So first, wanted to thank you all. We are on the eve of what's called Welcoming Week. This is something which I think you're familiar with. It's a week every September when all over the country, Welcoming America, local organizations like ours, we're Welcoming Falls Church, plan and organize activities for the community. This year, it's anticipated that there will be over 2,500 activities in about 200 communities around the country. So we're part of something bigger, and this is good news. I think we'll all feel, given what otherwise is sometimes a concerning national climate. So here, I secondly wanted to reiterate an invitation to you all and express thanks for your hosting and your exhortation to the community. Especially Peter Noonan, for talking to us about a book called Behold the Dreamers. There's a talk coming up this Saturday, I think you all know. Importantly, you do not need to have read the book in order to attend the talk. The talk is on immigration and the American dream. This is an idea, an issue, which is very important as we think about where we are. Because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to overcome differences. We're trying to bridge divisions in our society. So just as we're talking about building together, we're talking about building a community of neighbors. And so this talk, we think, is going to be inspiring, very helpful. And the good news is over 150 people are registered so far, and that number is increasing daily. We had a public event down at the downtown park last night. We had 175 people, so it's really good. I think it's really captured some attention. And I'd invite you all to join if you can. And along the lines of building a community of neighbors, encourage your neighbors, encourage your friends to attend. This is the kind of thing which, if we have a conversation in the community, it can only help as we think about some of our broader objectives of the kind of community we want to have. I'll wind up by mentioning a couple of notes. I passed around a flyer, and I'll actually, along the lines of this being a public comment, I'll offer it to all of you too, tell you about what we're doing. This describes a number of activities beyond the Saturday events at George Mason High School. And also a little trial balloon. I had a really interesting conversation with Peter Laub up at Mason the other day. He's great. I don't know what the lasso is going to do with this, but I think they'll do something. But we were talking about perhaps doing something with public, like artwork, or literary creations or imagery or videos, and inviting kids into this process to think about, okay, what does welcoming mean? What is welcoming across race, ethnicity? What are some visions of this? Maybe this is a case, especially the way that this works across generations, that we can look at some energy coming, and maybe we'll nurture and channel that energy following the event on the 14th. So I don't know what that looks like.